Hello and welcome. So this piece was originally an effort to simply get rid of some old resin that I had. I mean, it was pretty old and yellowed. And I didn't think that it was going to set up or even turn once it did set up. So I originally had no intention of filming this particular turning, given that the piece may end up being trash. So I kind of threw in a bunch of stuff into the resin and out it came. So since I originally didn't think it was going to work, I poured everything off camera. But if you're interested in that process, please take a look at the purple luster video. I've put it down in the description for convenience. I'm using a negative rake carbide insert with this, and as you can see, I'm getting some really nice stringers out of it. It is actually quite gratifying. It kind of cuts like butter into the resin. I find that regular carbide insert tips just kind of gouge the resin a lot, and you get a real large amount of tear out. So if you're interested in working with resin, I highly recommend the negative rake carbide inserts. I've added some links down below of all the tools and more that I've used in this video. So the negative rake cutters are in the list. Definitely check them out. I fell in love with them when I learned about them. I immediately got a couple and just I've never been sorry with them. So if you've ever worked with resin before, you know that it's a bit of a messy business. It gets all over the place. You see that I am constantly clearing my tool, clearing the lathe of resin stringers. Now, I do want to talk about safety for a second. I was rightfully called out in one of my videos for a safety hazard, and I could have easily been injured. So thank you for calling that out. I did notice it before the comment was made and have since corrected my actions accordingly. So please rest assured that I do take it seriously. I do take safety very seriously. And I hold myself to high standards and always make the effort to have awareness of both my body and surroundings. So I want to stress the importance of safety with this type of work. I don't take it lightly for sure, and appreciate it when it's pointed out to me. So thank you again to you know who you are that pointed me out. So hopefully I will do a better job at exhibiting greater safety in the future. So here I've moved on to the bottom of the bowl. I'm going to clean it up a little bit, and I've started working on the tenon. You notice a big void there. So this void came about because the resin was just so thick that I don't think it really allowed all of the air bubbles out, and it just kind of collected in one spot. So I temporarily filled it with JB Weld Quick Wood Putty. I did this so that I would quickly get back to turning, because it does set up a little bit quicker than Milliput. But I did refill it with Milliput later on. I didn't actually show that in the video. I had to go back and kind of scrape some of it out because it just wasn't as hard and durable as Milliput is. It works for some things. It's decent, but as far as wood turning goes, I don't know that I would entirely recommend it. Regular woodworking, absolutely. Yes, it's a great filler. You can sand it, you can paint it, you can stain it. Everything that you want to do is just not quite as hard once it's cured as, say, Milliput or normal resin. So good stuff, though. Added that down on the list as well if you're interested in checking some of it out. They have different colors of it, so that's one of the benefits. So I'd like to give a shout out to Woodturners Wonders for their contribution to the woodturning community. I was over there at one of their warehouses recently, and I met some of the folks over there. Great, great group of people. This is not sponsored by them. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I just happen to really like their products a lot. And in this particular section, I'm using sanding discs that are actually mesh. And I have to say they were a treat to use in this project, and highly recommended. So if you're interested in seeing what kind of products they have, link is down in the description. Jump in and take a look at your leisure. Once the sanding was done, I did go over it with the multi-grit car polish system that I use. I really like this polish. Once you get to the final polish, everything looks very glassy and clean. I did finish it off with Meguiar's Mirror Glaze, since this was going to be more of a utility type bowl, or maybe decorative on the shelf somewhere, that I'd give it the mirror glaze for a little bit more durability. So as I go through the steps on the polishing, it just keeps getting glassier and glassier. So gratifying to watch it just kind of come to life. It really makes the interior of the resin pop. I used kind of a mixture of different mica powders and some glitter that I had lying around. I figured, you know what, let's make it fun if it does come out. I really am happy with the results. I just think that's very pretty. Hopefully you think the same. Finally taking the bowl off the lathe and turning it over to put in the chuck. Getting it all mounted up and ready for turning the inside. Using the 1/2-inch bowl gouge here, I am going into the stair-step process of trying to hog out the interior. I like to kind of take my time with these a little bit. I'm not in a huge rush. But I will say that the stair-step approach really makes it a lot more stable of a process. That little wedge just gives the tool just the right amount of support so it doesn't go dragging across the surface of the wood. I can appreciate that quite a bit, especially when I have a nice finished surface like you see here. It's nothing worse than getting a catch and having it just drag over. I've had to kind of redo a little bit of work in the past, so because of that. Lessons learned, hard lessons there. So this is one of those techniques that I've picked up over time. I'm still learning more and more techniques and always interested in seeing new stuff. So feel free to shoot me info of things you think I might like down in the comments. Always happy to try new things. Speaking of the comments, I do want to thank you all for your comments and encouragement as I continue to learn this craft. I really enjoy sharing the experience. Using my handheld depth gauge, making sure that I don't blow out the bottom of this bowl. So far, knock on wood and all that stuff, I've not blown out a bowl yet, or the bottom of a piece yet. I figure that'll probably happen someday when I get complacent and cocky. So I switched over to the carbide tools for the rest of the inside. I did have a little bit of a curve that I wanted to knock out on the interior. Mostly using the regular carbide tips for the wood, but then I did switch over to the negative rake inserts just to kind of keep it smooth. Slowly getting the final depth. And then working through the different tools. This is apple wood, by the way. So resin and apple. Apple wood's a little dense, and it likes to tear out a little bit if you don't use the right kind of speed and tools and all that. But I did end up getting some nice results out of it without having to sand too much. Nice shot of the interior, finally cutting through the wood and getting to the resin. This one is not really translucent at all. It's very, very opaque. I added a lot of mica powder, so it's pretty occluded in there. I did use the Swan neck for a little bit of the interior wall of the bowl. I wanted to get it nice and clean and smooth, a nice clean ledge underneath the top edge of the piece. Nice, gratuitous shot. Enjoy. There's something gratifying about watching the carbide tool just shave wood and resin. Finally got the inside done. I did go through some sanding grits just to kind of make sure that I had a nice smooth surface. Eliminate any minor tear out that might have popped up. For the most part, it's very smooth, but I tend to try to keep it consistent with my sanding just in case. It's interesting when we talk about safety, and then you see people put their hand on a moving object like this. It's contradictory. I understand that. But I will say that, believe it or not, it is quite safe. There's nothing to catch my hands. There's nothing to keep them from coming out of the piece in case something goes awry. So I did wax the wood. I went through and added some wax before going back into the interior resin and exterior resin with the polish. The wax actually kind of kept the polish from bonding with the wood, which was nice because it gives it a really weird texture if you let the polish hit the wood. So, little pro tip for you there. If you decide to use this and you're doing a wood resin combination, oil or wax the wood first before you polish the resin. It seems to be a really nice way of getting the results that you're looking for. So, and you can see that I've refilled those cracks and voids with the milliput, which blended in with the dark color of the resin very well. So, final polish on the outside from the Meguiar's mirror glaze. Using a nice terry cloth to kind of buff up the surface of it a little bit. The contrast between the wood and the resin is very, very pleasing to me. Please hit that like button if you think this is really nice. Greatly appreciate it. There's just the slightest bit of a satin finish to the top edge of the bowl. I did go back and correct that later on. Here I've turned the bowl around and I'm setting it into the mini cold jaws set that I have. This happens to be a Technatool jaw set that's made for the Novichok series. I put some tape on the surface of the cold jaws so that it wouldn't mar the resin when I went to turn the base of it. Want to make sure I had some support, so I did run the quill and the tailstock up to it, just to keep it from wobbling around too much. At this stage, I'm just getting rid of the tenon, trying to flatten the base. I do give it just a slight bit of a concave bottom so that it sits nice and cleanly on whatever surface it's going to sit on. Here I'm using the bowl gouge to just kind of lightly, slowly remove a little bit of material at a time. Kind of have to be careful with the cold jaws. It's just holding the bowl on with a little bit of pressure, so you have to be kind of gentle at it so that it doesn't come popping off. Once that was done, I did do some final sanding on the wood. You see I've also filled in the void with milliput there. Sand it, and then I will brand it. Sand it and brand it, that rhymes. Nice little hot branding iron there. And there we go. Final sanding. And then wax it up. Get it looking nice and pretty. So for the wax, I use a mixture of beeswax and mineral oil. This particular coating of wax has some pumice in it, which fills the pores very nicely, kind of gives it a little bit of a shine. It's a great way to smooth off the surface of the wood one final time and give it that nice lush, waxy finish. I did go over it with a final bit of wax without the pumice as well. So here's the final piece. The black swan that I thought was originally going to be an ugly duckling. So thank you for watching. As always, have a great day and see you next time.